Today we're going to be covering the Insulation, Perimeter, and Miscellaneous tab in the Roofing BUR area condition. Now ultimately, when you click on your Insulation tab, you're going to be presented with four fields. Field A, B, and C are all representative of any board that you're going to be placing underneath the layers of felt that you're calculating for this project. So that board could be substrate board, it could be insulation board, it could be cover board, and you'll notice that we have a tapered column here as well. Ultimately, type A, type B, and type C are all filled out the same, so we're going to look at one of those columns and then we'll talk about tapered. Starting with type A, you're going to start in the upper left and you start with the number of layers that you're going to be placing down. So in this case, we have one layer of 2-inch thick ISO. If we wanted to change any of this information, we could reorganize this and change this. If we wanted this to be 1/2-inch dense deck, simply change your thickness and then you'll go change the type here to be dense deck. In this case, you're producing a 4x8 board, width and length, and then your type. Click the three-dotted button for your type and choose the new product that you want to use. Moving down, the LTTR value field, this is purely an information-only field. You don't need to fill that out. You can actually just skip right past it. Continuing down to fasteners, and here we're asking for the number of fasteners per square foot. Now, most commonly, we're going to use 32 square feet because that's what you're producing for a board, and we're simply just going to ask you to put in the number of fasteners you need to secure that board down to the deck. Go ahead and change the length of the fasteners that you would be producing. If you wanted to change the pieces per carton, depending on that fastener length, you're more than welcome to do so as well. Here, you're going to go ahead and change the type of fastener you're working with. You can choose from our predefined list, or you can pull your new list in, or add any new products. Fasten to, again, is information only, no reason to fill that out. And your plate type down here is for the different plates that you may need for these insulation fasteners. Continuing down, and if you weren't using fasteners, you have adhesive. Now adhesive works a couple different ways. If you're going to be using asphalt, you're going to put the pounds per layer in here that you would be using to secure that insulation to the deck with asphalt. In this case, if you're using type 3, you would be throwing in 30 pounds. If you changed, instead of using asphalt, let's say you were using something like your Firestone ISO Twin Pack or your Twin Jet, either one of those, when you pull that product in, Cav Grip for Carlisle, any of those types of things. But when you pull that product in, you're actually going to change the units to 1. Once you change the units to 1, behind the scenes, the program is making the correct adjustments to turn off the asphalt line and to turn on an adhesive line for you. Once you throw in the unit of 1, you will need to run the wizard on this, so that way you can go in and customize the coverage rate per gallon here, or per 5-gallon or tank, or however you're ordering that. So that's going to be how you can fill out the information for your insulation. Now, if you needed multiple layers, simply adjust the number of layers here. Make sure that you toggle on or off fasteners or adhesive. And if you were going to be doing 2 layers of insulation, one layer being adhered and the other layer being fastened, we'll simply set up 2 columns and populate them with the same product, except have one with fasteners and have one with adhesive. So if we were going to actually build this as a 2-inch ISO, in this case, one layer being fastened, one layer being adhered, this is how it would look. Here I'm just going to copy and paste with Control-C, Control-V, leave fasteners off. I'm going to turn this adhesive on just to copy and paste this as well. So, if you needed to produce an insulation setup where you had one layer being fastened and one layer being adhered, this is how your condition property view would look. Now the next field that we're going to go over is the tapered. This tapered column is simply here to produce a quote for you, meaning we're only going to give you one line item and it's going to be a lump sum dollar amount for you to be able to calculate a quote coming from the supplier for them to give you a tapered package. In this case, go up and choose the insulation that you would be using. If you want to use something generic, you can also type in create a tapered item if you wanted to, or if you had something specific, you could go in and use the specific product. Continuing down, and now you have your fasteners. Here you will need to go ahead and set your fastener calculation up with the number of fasteners per board that you would like to see. For the length, we're going to recommend that you use an average length. The reason being is we're not going to be able to give you the individual length fasteners that you need inside of this condition. So the best thing that we can do is come up with the average length fastener, so that way you at least have the money inside of your project to calculate the varying sizes that you're going to need to order. If you're going to be working with adhesive, we do recommend that for your units, you may end up playing with this number a little bit and not leaving it at 1. You may change it to be 1.5, 1.75. Sometimes you may even decide to change it to 2, but you will want to look at that number to make sure that you're calculating enough adhesive inside of your project. Again, this is to account for all of the tapered that you're going to have. Ultimately, this tapered is just producing a single quote line on your material pricing screen for you to be able to add in that lump sum dollar amount. Now, continuing to the next tab, you have perimeter. The way that the perimeter tab works is this is in addition to the insulation tab. So if on the insulation tab we're calculating 8 fasteners per 32 square feet, let's say that we want to meet a required fastening pattern of 8, 12, and 16. 8 fasteners in the field, 12 in the perimeter, and 16 in the corners. If that's what we wanted to meet, the first thing we would do is go to perimeter and turn our perimeter and corners on. We would then need to tell the program how far off the parapet wall that perimeter is going to come into play. For today's example, we're going to use 10 feet. We're going to set the corners up to show the same. In this case, let's say we were using fasteners. If we're using fasteners, we're going to pull the same fastener length that we had on the insulation tab. We're going to pull the same fastener type that we had on the insulation tab as well. So in this case, we can just copy and paste it just to make it easy on ourselves. And then ultimately, now we're getting to the fastener calculation. So I'm going to go ahead and throw our 32 square feet in there, knowing that we're looking at a board. So again, this is in addition to the insulation tab. So for our perimeters, we're trying to get to a total of 12 fasteners. In the field, we're calculating 8. So how many do we need to add to get to 12? Well, 12 minus 8 equals 4. So in this case, we're going to add 4 fasteners per board in the perimeter. Moving over to your corners, corners and perimeter inside of the edge are calculated separately. So the 4 fasteners that you just added to the perimeter did not get added to your corners. Meaning that if you wanted to meet at least a 12 fastener per board requirement, you would need to start with the number 4 in there. However, we're trying to get to a 16 fastener per board requirement. In that case, we have the 8 coming from the insulation tab. So 16 minus 8 equals 8. So we would throw 8 fasteners per 32 in there to give us the additional 8 fasteners per board that we need for our corners. With this setup, this is how you'll be able to produce your additional fastener calculation that you need to meet those FM ratings. Pieces per carton, again optional. It's up to you on if you want to fill that out or not. We do recommend filling it out if you know the fastener length that you're going to be working with, just so that way you can price this by the box instead of by the piece. Fasten to is information only, and again, if you are using fasteners, go ahead and turn the plate types on and choose the plate type you need. Now when it comes to your insulation adhesive, this is where it's a little bit different. Now yes, we are still calculating a 12-inch on-center spray pattern from the field. That does carry over into your perimeters and corners. So if that's the case, in the perimeter, we're actually going to be using the same 12-inch on-center spray pattern because your team in the field is not going to lay 2 12-inch spray patterns on top of each other. So the idea is that we're calculating enough material to where it would technically be doubled up, but your team in the field is going to stagger those patterns. So in this case, this is in addition to what you have on the insulation tab. You already have 12 inches on center, so realistically you're getting 6 inches on center if you double it. So same thing applies to the corners as it did to the perimeter for the adhesive as when we were working on the fasteners. The corner does not catch any of the perimeter adhesive. So the way that we're allowing you to get the extra securement that you need is instead of choosing the 12-inch on center, you're actually going to choose the 6-inch on center. And the same concept applies. In this case, if you choose a 6-inch on center spray pattern, you know that one run of that is going to be getting caught by the adhesive from the insulation tab. So really, it's laying this bead down And then in the perimeter tab, you're calculating 2 additional runs that break up that 12-inch increment. So in this case, you're truly going to be calculating a 4-inch on-center spray pattern. Ultimately, that's how you fill out your perimeter and corners to get you the additional insulation securement that you need for the FM ratings. The next field you have are your edge fasteners. Ultimately, the edge fasteners are very rarely used, but this is just an additional fastener that goes around the lineal footage of perimeter that you have in your project. So going back to that same scenario of a 100 by 100 building, in this case, if we said fasteners every 12 inches, we would produce 400 additional fasteners on our project, simply taking the lineal footage of perimeter, dividing it by 12 inches, and giving us a number. The final tab that we want to cover with you is the Miscellaneous tab, and ultimately the Miscellaneous tab is a catch-all. So in the general insulation and perimeter tab, if we didn't grab all of the material that you're going to need for this specific condition, the Miscellaneous is where you're going to build it. Now when working with the Miscellaneous tab, you are building a ratio. So as you measure square footage, how much of this specific product do you want it to measure as well? 1 per 1, 2 per 1, 0.5 per 1, and that's ultimately how you will be setting up your miscellaneous items. If you have any additional questions as it pertains to the roofing BUR area condition and setting this up or making modifications, please feel free to reach out to our tech team and they'd be happy to assist you in any way they can. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.